Imagine dedicating over 3 decades of your life to a single grueling passion, but doing it completely in the shadows of a highly demanding executive day job.
Right.
Picture balancing the relentless physical toll of international sporting competition with complex public health logistics.
That's a lot to juggle.
It
Yeah.
is. And somehow, in the margins of all that, raising a family of international champions in the exact same sport. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a fascinating stack of notes, articles, and historical records centered around Marty Sloan.
Huge name.
Yeah, for those of you who follow the rich history of field hockey, that name carries immense weight. He is the legendary midfielder from County Tyrone, Northern Ireland, whose career spanned, entirely different eras, surfaces, and generations.
And our mission today is to look well beyond the impressive statistics outlined in his Wikipedia biography. We are putting Sloan's life under the microscope to explore the mechanics of true athletic longevity. We want to look at the psychological framework required to process profound professional heartbreak and the intricate architecture of building a generational legacy within the demanding ecosystem of semi-professional sports.
Which is not easy.
Not at all. We are looking at what it actually takes to sustain a high-performance lifestyle for 30 years.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to start by looking at his foundational years. The sources point us to Cookstown High School as the incubator for his career.
Yeah, that's where it all started.
And it seems he was establishing a winning pedigree from the very beginning.
He definitely was. The records show him securing victories in both the McCullough Cup and the Bernie Cup finals during his time at Cookstown.
Right.
And that early exposure to regional hardware is critical. When you are developing in a highly competitive school environment, winning sets a specific psychological baseline.
It becomes the norm.
Exactly. It creates an expectation of excellence.
Ah.
You learn the tactical discipline and the intense work ethic required to function inside a successful unit, which becomes the blueprint for the rest of your career.
And that blueprint clearly scaled up quickly. He transitions into the Cookstown domestic team, and we hit this fascinating historical marker in the 1986 to 1987 season.
Oh, this is a great detail.
Right. They win the Irish Senior Cup, shutting out Banbridge 4-0. But the sources highlight a very specific contextual detail about that particular final that speaks volumes about the era.
Yeah, that 1987 victory over Banbridge holds a unique place in history because it was the last Irish Senior Cup final ever to be played on natural grass.
Which is wild to think about today.
It is a massive paradigm shift for the sport.
Yeah.
Anyone who has played the game knows that the biomechanical requirements for dominating on grass are entirely different from what is required on modern water-based AstroTurf.
I mean, the friction alone.
Exactly. On grass, the game is grinding, it's heavy, it is heavily reliant on physical imposition and battling unpredictable surface conditions.
So transitioning out of that era, yet maintaining an elite level of play, that requires a complete recalibration of a player's physical approach to the game.
It demands an overhaul of everything from your stick geometry to your cardiovascular conditioning. On turf, the ball speed increases exponentially.
It's a totally different sport, really.
It is. The game shifts from a battle of physical attrition to a high-speed, razor-sharp tactical sprint.
Right.
And the low-to-the-ground posture required on turf places a fundamentally different stress on the lower back and knees. Most players who forged their muscle memory on grass simply aged out when the game moved to artificial surfaces.
Because their bodies just couldn't handle it.
Their bodies couldn't make the physiological leap. Yet, the records show Sloan's domestic career spanned from that rugged grass era all the way through to his retirement at the end of the 2009 to 2010 season.
That is almost 30 years of domestic, highly competitive play.
It's staggering.
Sustaining that level of output while the entire tactical and physical landscape of the sport is rewritten underneath your feet. And his influence wasn't just limited to his club team. He was heavily involved at the provincial level with Ulster.
He was an absolute cornerstone for Ulster. He spent 11 years on their senior team, and during that tenure, he captained them to 7 interprovincial titles.
7 titles. Holding the captaincy for a provincial side for that long suggests a level of locker room influence that goes far beyond just being the best player on the pitch.
It requires an elite level of emotional intelligence. In an amateur or semi-professional environment, your teammates are managing day jobs, financial pressures, and personal lives.
They aren't just showing up to play hockey.
Right. A captain in that setting isn't just a tactical relay for the coach. They are the emotional regulator for the entire squad.
I like that phrase, emotional regulator.
Because it's true. To successfully manage those varied personalities and stressors well enough to secure 7 interprovincial titles, that demonstrates a profound capacity for leadership.
Which naturally brings us to his footprint on the international stage, where that leadership was tested on a much larger scale. When we look at his time wearing the green jersey for Ireland, the sheer volume of his involvement stands out.
The numbers are frankly remarkable. Between 1982 and 1995, Sloan accumulated 149 senior appearances for Ireland.
That's a huge number.
But the truly staggering statistic is that out of those 149 caps, he wore the captain's armband 107 times.
That ratio is hard to wrap your head around. To
Yeah.
step onto the pitch for your national team 149 times is an achievement in itself.
Definitely.
But to be the designated leader for 107 of those matches indicates an almost unshakable trust from multiple coaching regimes.
It points to a rare consistency. Coaches turn over, tactical philosophies evolve, and new generations of players filter into the squad over a 13-year span.
Yeah, the team in 1995 looked very different from 1982.
Exactly. Yet through all of that flux, Sloan remained the constant authoritative voice on the pitch. His senior debut really sets the tone for this.
At 20 years old.
Yes. He stepped onto the international stage on June 18, 1982, during a Euro Hockey Nations Championship qualifying tournament. Ireland dismantled Sweden 7-0.
Talk about a strong start. And it didn't take long for him to assume that leadership role either. The sources show him captaining the side for the first time just 5 years later, in July 1987.
Leading Ireland to an 8-1 victory over Belgium.
He eventually hits his 100th match as captain in 1995 during a 4-0 win against Italy. But I want to pull back from the clean statistics for a moment, because international competition during that era was anything but glamorous.
That is an understatement.
There is a deeply intriguing reference in the source material regarding the 1990 Men's Hockey World Cup.
The Lahore tournament. That particular event strips away a lot of the polished veneer we usually associate with international caps.
It really does. I have to read the title of this source article covering that World Cup in Pakistan because it paints an incredibly vivid picture.
Go for it.
The headline is, and I'm quoting here, "Flying with drunken angels, riot police, dodgy curry, potent 7-Up, and spotless trainers as Irish play a lament in Lahore."
What's fascinating here is how effectively that single headline captures the gritty reality of international amateur sports in 1990.
It sounds like a movie script.
Today, you are used to seeing elite athletes operating in hyper-curated environments. They travel on private charters, travel with dedicated nutritionists, and stay in highly secured, optimized hotels.
Everything is perfectly controlled.
But in 1990, an international tournament required athletes to navigate severe logistical chaos.
You are dealing with intense culture shock, highly questionable dietary situations, and navigating through cities with active riot police.
All while trying to peak physically for a World Cup match.
Right.
The cognitive load of simply surviving the travel and the environment would break a lot of modern squads. You were traveling across the globe on commercial flights.
Sitting in coach, probably.
Dealing with jet lag without specialized recovery protocols, and facing severe gastrointestinal distress from the local food.
And the potent 7-Up.
Exactly. Yet you still have to step onto the pitch against the absolute best, most highly conditioned players on the planet. Sloan was captaining the squad through that crucible.
Wow.
It requires an immense level of mental fortification to keep a team focused on tactical execution when the environment around them is that volatile.
It highlights a specific type of grit. You aren't just battling the opposing team, you are battling the infrastructure of the tournament itself. And his international reach extended beyond Ireland, too. The sources indicate he also made a pivot to the Great Britain squad during this period.
He earned 6 caps for Great Britain, which included playing in the 1987 Sultan Azlan Shah Cup in Malaysia.
That's a major event.
It is a prestigious tournament, and Great Britain secured the bronze medal there. Operating at that tier, medaling in that specific tournament, proves he was fundamentally integrated into the absolute highest echelon of international play.
Which sets the stage for one of the most agonizing moments in the source material. Following that bronze medal performance, Sloan makes the Great Britain training squad for the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul.
The dream for any athlete.
For any athlete in this sport, the Olympics is the absolute pinnacle. But he doesn't make the final cut. He suffers the heartbreak of being left off the final tournament squad.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to examine the profound psychological impact of that moment.
It had to be devastating.
For an amateur athlete, the pursuit of the Olympic squad requires astronomical personal sacrifice. You're draining your own finances, consuming all of your annual leave from your day job,
Every vacation day goes to training camps.
and pushing your body to the absolute brink, all for a singular, highly improbable dream.
And the sources provide a very poignant detail about the aftermath of that squad announcement. The article mentions his Ireland teammates, Stephen Martin and Jimmy Kirkwood players. Sloan had won a silver medal alongside at the 1978 Euro Hockey Junior Championship. They actually did make the final Great Britain squad. Yeah. There is a specific mention of Martin and Kirkwood raising a toast to Seoul Olympics joy.
Imagine the complex grief of that situation. You have trained alongside these men for years. You grew up in the same system, suffered through the same grueling interprovincial matches, and shared the same aspirations.
We're practically brothers.
At the final hurdle, they board the flight to South Korea, and you are left at home reading the newspaper headlines about their joy.
For many players, that is the definitive end of the road. When the ultimate goal is snatched away after that level of investment, the bitterness can easily permanently sour your relationship with the sport.
It is the ultimate test of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. If your entire identity is tethered to the external validation of becoming an Olympian, missing that cut destroys you.
You just hang up the stick.
But Sloan's response is a masterclass in resilience. He absorbs that life-altering professional disappointment, recalibrates his focus, and commits to another 7 years of international play.
7 more years.
He continues to captain Ireland, eventually leading them to a highly respectable 5th-place finish at the 1995 Euro Hockey Nations Championship.
That is incredible.
That ability to compartmentalize the Olympic heartbreak and maintain an elite standard of play for another decade reveals a psychological durability that is arguably more impressive than the bronze medal he won the year prior.
It redefines how we view his career arc entirely. It wasn't just an uninterrupted upward trajectory. It was a sustained forward push through massive, heavy setbacks. Here's where it gets really interesting, because his life off the pitch wasn't a separate entity at all. The sport essentially functioned as the operating system for his entire family.
The generational component of Sloan's story is where the concept of legacy truly crystallizes. We often view amateur athletics as a selfish pursuit, something that takes a parent away from the family.
Spending weekends away at tournaments.
Right. But in the Sloan household, it was the connective tissue.
Let's look at the family dynamic. His wife, Adele, brings her own elite pedigree to the table. She is a former Ireland international player herself.
Which is crucial.
And professionally, she served as the head teacher at Cookstown High School from 2007 to 2013, the very same institution where Martin began his winning streak decades earlier.
Having 2 former international athletes managing a household completely changes the internal support structure. When your partner has also navigated the demands of international caps, there is no need to explain the necessity of the 5 a.m. training sessions,
Or the strict diets.
the meticulous dietary restrictions, or the weekends lost to travel. There is a shared, unspoken understanding of the sacrifices required to operate at that level.
They get it.
It removes the friction that often derails athletes who try to balance high-level sports with family life.
And that shared culture clearly transferred to the next generation. They have 2 sons, Stephen and Ian, both of whom naturally gravitated toward the sport.
It was in their blood.
Stephen played for the Cookstown domestic side. But Ian's trajectory is where the narrative comes full circle in the most poetic way possible. Ian achieved massive international success, playing for Ireland, playing for England, and eventually captaining Great Britain.
It is the ultimate redemption arc. The father suffers the agonizing disappointment of missing out on the Great Britain Olympic squad in 1988, and decades later, the son not only secures his place on that exact same national team, but is trusted to wear the captain's armband.
That gives me chills.
It proves that the resilience and tactical acumen Martin possessed wasn't just an isolated internal trait. It was a methodology he successfully documented and downloaded into his children.
And the sources provide a brilliant snapshot of that methodology in action. Toward the end of his playing days, remember, Martin was still actively competing until the 2009 to 2010 season.
On turf, no less.
Right. He actually played in the Cookstown Seconds, the reserve team, alongside both of his sons, Stephen and Ian. Put yourself in the shoes of a younger player on the opposing squad.
I'd be terrified.
You show up for a standard reserve match on a Saturday, and you find yourself lining up against a man with 149 international caps, who is out there orchestrating the midfield and distributing the ball to his 2 phenom sons.
It is a remarkable visual, but this raises an important question, and it is the crux of why this story matters to anyone listening who is trying to build a multidimensional life.
How did he pay for all this?
Exactly. How did he actually facilitate all of this? We have discussed 30 years of domestic competition, adapting to new playing surfaces, 149 international caps, traveling through the chaos of 1990s international tournaments, and raising a family of elite athletes with a spouse running a high school. But what was funding this life?
The sources revealed that away from the pitch, Martin Sloan was a director of the Northern Health and Social Care Trust.
A directorship at a major health and social care trust is a massive administrative and cognitive burden. You are responsible for navigating complex public health policy,
It's life or death stuff.
managing colossal municipal budgets, and overseeing staff who are dealing with critical community welfare issues. This isn't a role where you can simply leave your work at the desk at 5:00 p.m. It requires constant strategic oversight and crisis management.
The cognitive overlap between his two lives is striking when you really think about it. On the pitch, he is the captain. He's responsible for tactical execution, resource management in terms of player stamina, and emotional regulation of his squad.
Yes.
In the boardroom, he is doing the exact same thing, just with public health resources and healthcare professionals.
It requires a borderline superhuman approach to cognitive load management. Most individuals would find the demands of a healthcare directorship entirely consuming on its own.
Oh, absolutely.
To carry that professional weight while simultaneously subjecting your body to the cardiovascular punishment of international field hockey requires highly rigid systemic boundaries. It means optimizing every hour of the day.
No wasted time.
It means relying heavily on that shared understanding with his wife, Adele. It means utilizing the sport not as a distraction from his executive career, but perhaps as the physical and psychological release valve that allowed him to maintain his performance in the boardroom.
So what does this all mean? When we aggregate all of these details, the interprovincial titles, the grass-to-turf evolution, the gritty reality of Lahore, the Olympic heartbreak, the executive boardroom, and the generational handover to his sons, what is the definitive takeaway from the life of Marty Sloan?
The takeaway is a radical reimagining of what constitutes a successful, balanced life. We are frequently sold the narrative that extreme success requires extreme, single-minded obsession to the detriment of everything else.
We hear that all the time.
We are told you have to choose, be the elite athlete, be the high-powered executive, or be the present parent. Sloan rejects that premise entirely. His life demonstrates it with immense internal resilience, a highly supportive shared family culture, and rigorous cognitive management. These domains do not have to cannibalize each other.
They can actually feed into one another.
Precisely. The discipline forged on the grass pitches of Cookstown fueled his executive career, and the strategic thinking required at the Health Trust undoubtedly informed his 107 appearances as an international captain.
It is a phenomenal blueprint. It proves that a setback in one arena, like missing the Seoul Olympics, doesn't have to define your narrative. You can absorb the blow, pivot, and continue building a foundation so strong that your children eventually stand on it to reach the heights you narrowly missed.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to consider today. When you examine the architecture of Martin Sloan's life, navigating the volatile conditions of a World Cup in Pakistan, managing public health budgets, and eventually passing the ball to his own sons on a modern turf pitch, it demands an audit of your own daily pursuits.
That's a great point.
Look at the passions and the work you are pouring your energy into right now. Are you operating in silos where your career, your hobbies, and your family life are in constant friction? Or are you actively building an integrated ecosystem, a foundation that will not only sustain your own resilience for the next 3 decades, but will ultimately inspire the next generation to pick up your baton and run with it?
A brilliant framework to evaluate our own lives against. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the exceptional career, the quiet resilience, and the enduring legacy of Martin Sloan. Until next time, keep learning and stay curious.